This week on Sprague Woodturning, I'm going to use some more beautiful maple burl. And at this point, I don't really know what this is going to be, but the main focus on this video is going to be using deep cast and getting color separation with it. So that's next. So yes, welcome to the video. If you haven't been here before, I upload every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I like to turn my videos into premieres so that we can discuss things as the piece is being made on your TV at home. I can't always do it sometimes. Sometimes life gets in the way, but for the most part, I do try to just do premieres. And along with that, so we got to clean the bark off this. Again, you can't cast a bark. You never should do that. And just using a flat tip screwdriver and this homemade flap sander. Works fantastic using old belts from my Supermax drum sander. So here's the bucket that we're going to use. It's a lot larger than I want height-wise. It's the right size and diameter. This will still fit in my smaller pressure pot. And we're going to use the rice method to calculate how much epoxy we're going to need. So we'll put the casting in and we'll dump the rice in to the level that we want. And then we'll times it by 1.4. And that will give us the volume of epoxy that we're going to need to mix up. All right, so now I'm going to measure this. I'll be sure to blow this out before we glue it in. So there's 2 liters. .25 liters. One thing's for sure, it's going to be a lot of epoxy. So 3.25 times 1.4 equals 4.5 liters of epoxy. Now the 1.4, the 0.4 goes around the spacing around the rice. The rice can't fit together tightly because of the way it's shaped, and that's why you have to do the 0.4 on top of it. If you don't do that, you're definitely going to be short on epoxy. And speaking of epoxy, let's mix them up. Since we got a really deep pour, we're going to be using deep casting epoxy from Designer Epoxy. If you've been around for a while, you'll know that this is my go-to epoxy, and I absolutely love this for deep pours. It works fantastic. As far as pigments are concerned, we're going to use green, red, grass green. That's going to be one. Fan favorite, crystal purple. And of course, sapphire blue. I've used colors very similar to this in other castings, and they actually really look nice together, so that's why I decided to use them again this week. I don't know if I've used the green hypershift there though. Let's put a spoonful of crystallized white in each one of them too. And if you're looking for that real pearl effect, that's where the crystallized white comes in. Especially if you're working on, say, space-themed projects, it really kind of mimics stars in a galaxy. So that's another reason why I like to use it. And again, if you've been around for a while, you know I love my crystallized white, especially the big chunky stuff. It's the best. And as per always, please follow the mixing instructions on the bottles. It is very important that you mix your epoxy thoroughly so you don't have any curing issues. All right, so the plan is, right now it's 6 p.m. and I'm just gonna let these sit here on my bench overnight. It is cool in here, and I mean when I say it's cool in here, it's 18 degrees Celsius. I have the air conditioning on. Yes, I like it cool. And that should slow the thermal action of any of this. So the hope is that around 10 o'clock in the morning, Tomorrow we'll do the pour, and these will be thick enough that we can combine them, and they're not, and you know, they're going to stay separate. Anyway, we'll see you guys in there tomorrow morning. Well, good morning. This is 17 hours after the pour, and yeah, it's definitely a lot thicker than it was before, that is for sure. Deep cast is usually really kind of, not watery thin, but pretty close to it. You see how it's running off the stick? I don't know, I probably should leave it a little bit longer, but I've got some stuff to do today, and I really can't babysit this all day. I think that this is still going to work. 17 hours, amazing, eh? It's still kind of liquidy. And that just goes to show you that this is very temperature dependent. If I had left this in my clean room here, then this probably would have been set and we wouldn't be able to do anything with it today. But with it being out in the cool, out in my workshop, it's still flowing nicely. Alright, so I'm going to try and keep these on each side, and then I'll put the green in as well. By the way, this is still cold to the touch. It's not warm at all. Now that I've got a number of years under my belt working with epoxy like this, you know, when you get these in here, it's important not to stir this. The kind of the convection action, I'll call it that, of the epoxy itself will do that for you. And if you mix it too much, then you might just end up with one solid color. I know you guys probably can't see all that great, but sorry. Yeah, I'm going to try and make some sort of a camera mount that mounts on the wall in front of my pressure pots. That way we can get a better view when we're putting the epoxy in. The rice method has proven its value. Again, pretty much the perfect amount of epoxy I was looking for. The fact that this blank doesn't have any rot in it and it's very solid, we can do this. But if this was a punky piece of wood, I definitely wouldn't do it. Even though this is still probably quite liquidy enough that it's going to penetrate and help seal it up anyway. Really, really nice color mix. Let's get it out and have a look at it. Well, that was easy. Again, more great color separation on the bottom here. Everything looks good. Green, purple, blue. Pretty sweet. Yeah, look at that big purple section here. Looks like there's going to be some really nice blending of epoxy in here. Can't wait to tear into this. No thermal cracking that I can see. Awesome. We'll leave this for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Beauty. I do have one of those clear center finders, but I just prefer this method. It's a lot easier. I've got these templates cut for my buckets anyway, so why not use them? So it's not very often that we can do 1,000 RPM right out the gate here, so that's awesome. And yeah, I had a big piece chip off there. Again, that's why I'm wearing gloves. I know that sometimes people have an issue with that, but I would sooner wear a glove than have, well, my hands cut by this epoxy, because when it comes off of big pieces like that, it can definitely cut you. So the goal here, like it always is to whittle this down to expose the wood on the bottom, and then we'll make a call as to what we're going to do from there. And I'm using the number 3 Hercules from Hunter Tool Systems. There is a link in the description below to Hunter Tools, along with Designer Epoxy, sandpaper.ca, and a lot of the other things that you see me use here in the workshop. So if you have any questions about that stuff and where I got it from, have a look in the description and you might find your answer there. Yeah, I mean, I turn my videos, so I know that there's been a number of new people have recently subscribed, so thank you for that. And I do voiceovers through my content. Uh, when I first came to YouTube, I kind of seen there was a thirst for knowledge, so this is the direction that I've taken my channel in for the last 5 years. So thanks to those that have joined my membership and the people that watch my videos each and every week. I really, truly do appreciate it. We have a bunch of new people on board, so I think I'll reintroduce myself again. I try to do this periodically throughout the year. My name is Jim. I'm the owner of Sprague Woodturning. I've been turning for about 25 years. I am self-taught. I've never taken a lesson. I've just gotten my knowledge from DVDs and CDs and, of course, YouTube. I retired from the Canadian Armed Forces in 2012 after 24 years and have been doing it full-time since. The main reason that I'm here on YouTube is because of the world event that we had in 2020. I'm just showing that the change the cutter on the Hercules. That's kind of what put me here on YouTube, because I was doing a bunch of juried art shows in the province of Ontario, and of course that all got shut down. I switched to YouTube, and I'm so glad that I did. It's a really cool community on here. A lot of loyal subscribers, and thank you to those who watch my videos each and every week. But yeah, I'm self-taught. I've never taken a lesson. I really like the fact that you can take an ugly piece of wood and cast it with epoxy and turn it into a beautiful object. I take things that people would throw in the fireplace and make beautiful objects with it. I mean, it's very satisfying, very rewarding, and I highly recommend, if you're thinking about looking for a hobby, try woodturning. It's awesome. So what do you think? Absolutely beautiful color separation from deep cast. If you haven't tried deep cast, this method, I strongly recommend it. It is absolutely beautiful and easy to work with. And it's all about the wait time. Wait time and the temperature. Anyway, let's hit this with some denatured alcohol and see what we're looking at. Oh yeah. Check that out. Wild. Oh, amazing. Those pearl pigments, blue and the purple mixed together. Fantastic. Look at that. That's awesome. Very, very cool. Couple of big swirl patterns there. Same thing there, just a vortex. Very cool. Wow. So what do we do with this? You might be able to, and just a big might be able to get 3 bowls out of this through coring. Definitely would make a nice hollow form. I know I just did a hollow form, so I'm not going to do that. What I think I'm going to do is just making a nice enclosed bowl here. And you can't see it on the front here, but there's a big section of blue that goes down here. And then there's a big section of green. And then there's a big section of purple. So by enclosing this in, all of those beautiful colors will be on the top of the bowl. And this burl is kind of on the shorter side, so I think that that's the direction I'm going to go in. Again, it would make a beautiful hull form. I could core this and get at least 1 more bowl out of this, so a 2 bowl set. But I'm thinking I want an enclosed bowl of some sort. How awesome is that? Anyway, that's what I'm going to do. Tell me in the comments what you would have done. For those who are curious, I usually speed the footage up by 600% to 800%, but it's usually around 600. So it's good to leave those real-time clips in so you can actually get a sense for the feed rate and, you know, kind of the noises associated with the lathe. It's something that you'll get a feel for. When I'm on the lathe, working on the lathe, you'll hear some stuff that is not normal. So it's always good to turn the lathe off and investigate that before you have a big chunk of wood fly off and hit you, or a big chunk of epoxy come off and hit you. So there's always that. But, you know, I like to leave those real-time clips in whenever I can, as long as the video length permits it. I'm just going to turn a very, very small tenon here with a short profile because, again, I don't want to rob away too much epoxy from the core. We are going to core this. Now, this is a 5/8 skew, and David Dalby, I think is his name, and made by Crown. He's if you're looking for somebody that does some pretty awesome center work, go on Instagram and look up David Dalby. It's just, he does amazing work. Absolutely amazing stuff. So I'm just going to hold this with this short profile tenon. I'm not going to tool the bottom of this because, well, it'd probably be ripped out quite easily. So I'm just going to take some 60 grit with a double disc here from sandpaper.ca, and I'm going to stick on a white birch glue block. See you in 10 minutes. To shape this tenon, here's the David Ellsworth gouge, and it's the 5/8 Ellsworth gouge. And another great turner that's no longer with us. I love this gouge. This has been my go-to gouge for a very long time. And that's just a go, no-go gauge. Make them for your different sizes that you have for your chucks. And then that way it's just a quick reference so that you don't need to actually physically measure stuff. Break that little piece off, and then we'll reverse this and clean it up again. Every time you reverse something, change position, then of course it needs to be trued up. Anybody that does this line of work will appreciate that, where you've got that perfect cut going, and it's not, you know, it's with the epoxy, when you've got a perfect cut going, you can hardly even hear it going. So, you know, but when you're into the wood, a lot of times you need hearing protection, or if you're turning metal like I was last week, you definitely want to use some sort of hearing protection. And speaking of last week's video, if you missed that, I will link that at the end of this video. By far #1 video that I've put up in a very long time. So if you've missed it, I will link that. And thank you so much to those that have watched it. It's been an absolutely fabulous video, and definitely will be using more copper pipe and bamboo moving forward. So still working on form here. Again, this is a relatively basic form that I'm going for here. Sometimes simple is better if you're trying to show off the epoxy. In this case, you know, the Burl, don't get me wrong, the Burl is nice here, but you know, the epoxy is the star of the show, and I know that there's going to be some people that will not agree with me on that. But the Burl does have some cracks in it that we're going to have to fix. The epoxy itself, though, is flawless. There's no issues with it. Unfortunately, I'd hoped to get the third video up for the new house build series, but it just didn't happen. I've had a very busy week here with filming, and I just, you know, trying to this is my main focus, is my regular Friday content here, and but it will definitely be up sometime next week, so have a look for that, and hopefully you got your bell notification on. That way you don't miss it. We're all set up and ready for coring. This is the one-way coring rig from oneway.ca. And of course, we're going to be using the Core Pro cutter from Hunter Tools. Absolutely love this thing. If you do any coring at all, spend the money and get this Core Pro cutter because it works fantastic. Got the steady rest in place so that this doesn't go that way or this way. And anyway, we should be able to get a decent size core out of this that we can use at a later date. So yeah, 750, I find that, I've been playing with coring speeds, and 750, if you can go that fast on these smaller items like this, tends to really seem to cut the best. I will put in tailstock support as soon as I possibly can. I would not do this without the steady rest. If you do, there's probably a good chance that it's going to come off the lathe. That's probably one of the drawbacks with working with these smaller pieces. And when I say smaller pieces, ordinarily when I was in full production doing these juried art shows, I would probably not even finish a bowl this size that I'm taking out the core. But of course, since it's epoxy, I'll hold on to this and use it for something at a later date. But it's funny just how a business changes when you start working with other materials, just due to the cost of epoxy and how time consuming it is to work with. But if you try to use the normal cutter from One Way, yeah, it will work, but you'll have to do a ton of sharpening to kind of get the same results. The only drawback that I can see with the Core Pro cutter is the width of it. You lose a little bit per bowl, but overall, the way this works, it works fantastic, and I'm so glad that I've got it in my inventory. And there's a nice little core that you can absolutely make a small box with, more small bowls with, and an inverted box with the wood on the top. All right, so now we're outboard, and again, if you're new to the channel, the reason why I like to turn outboard is because I'm left-handed, and this is a 20-inch general for those who are curious what lathe I'm turning on. Variable speed, electronic variable speed, and it's got left-hand threads on the outboard end, so that allows lefties to comfortably use a lathe, unlike you righties who have the advantage when it comes to everything in general in society. So I will give you a little bit of a house update. The rafters, the trusses are on now. And for the most part, the front of the roof has the OSB on it with all of the dormers built as well. However, there is a OSB shortage, orientated strand board. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's pretty much a standard building fake plywood, I'll call it that. And but right now there's a shortage in the province here because the main plant that makes it here apparently is broken or shut down for whatever reason. But hey, we're hoping that he's hoping to get another lift of the OSB today. Today is being Thursday. So we'll see. We have had some weather, so that has definitely kind of dampened things, literally. Slowed down the build of the house a bit, but hasn't been too bad. And as far as the dirt work that's being done behind the house, that's getting close to being done as well. And I must say that we're really liking the way that it looks. But yeah, that's kind of your house update. I know there's going to be some people wondering where we are on that, but that's it. Hoping to get a couple of lifts of OSB in and get that roof on, get things weather tight, and then of course more stuff can be done on the inside of the house. That's your house update. So anyway, I'm just hogging up material here. I'm not really paying close attention to what I'm doing, to be honest with you. The problem with taking a core out of a bowl this size is that the coring rig, the knife set that I was using, I couldn't get deeper into the bowl. That was my number one knife set. My number two knife set was too large. When I pulled the rig all the way to the left, I wasn't able to use it, or else we would have been able to cut this deeper than it is. And of course, always measuring so you don't become a member of the funnel club. You're going through the bottom of your bowl. That's nobody ever wants that, unless you are trying to make a funnel of some sort. But you'll see. So when you work at the rim and you push in, once you get to that transition area, yeah, you can cut like this, but you're kind of cutting into the fibers and not with the fibers. That way you're cutting with the fibers, and it does cut nicer. And if you're going to do this, you'll see the difference. You'll be able to judge it and say, okay, like if I'm getting a lot of chip out in this direction, and I'm not so much in the other direction. But when I've got probably an inch of thickness on the bottom here yet, so I'm just kind of in get her done mode and hogging this out. And then once I get down to almost my my finished thickness that I'm looking for, then you'll see me take lighter cuts, and that way you don't get chip out. You definitely don't want to get chip out when you're down to your final thickness, because then of course you may chase that and then your bowl will get too thin, like the space hollow form that I did recently on the top. I was chasing some stuff and all of a sudden it's too thin, and then for the most part that might have been its primary demise why it didn't survive. But that's another live and learn moment now, isn't it? I should mention that there's some tension coming out of this burl, and it's really causing it to move a little bit. So you'll see me truing up the outside and the top of the rim here. This honestly, this burl here was harder to cut than the copper pipe and bamboo. This is a hard maple burl, not soft maple. Hard maple is not fun to cut with. To cut generally. They make beautiful bowls, but it's one of the harder woods that we have here in Canada, and you got to be really good with your tool work, or else you're going to be doing a ton of sanding. But yeah, that and the fact that the other thing that I keep forgetting to do this. If you can't get to the right depth when you're inboard after coring, drill out the remainder of it. Put a drill bit in your tailstock and bring it up and drill to the depth that you're looking for. It's just a lot easier to take out the very center of this bowl if you do that. But for some reason, I just keep forgetting. Again, we're about an inch deep on this, so yeah. It would have made my life a lot easier. It's just a matter of remembering to do it. Yeah. People have also been asking about the sea container video, and when the second video is going to be released for that. And I still haven't got it moved to its location that I need it moved to before doing that video. So they've been focused so much on all the dirt moving that's needed to happen at the house. So eventually we'll get that sea container moved over to the back side of my workshop, and then I'll be able to build the false front and shoot the second video on that. But I'm kind of just waiting for them when they get a free moment to do that. But all the machines are usually tied up working pretty hard here. This bowl, and well, a lot of my turnings in general, I'll leave the bottom area of the bowl a little thicker than the sides and the rim. I find that just makes it more stable when it's sitting on a table or wherever it's sitting. And that applies to hollow forms and vases as well. If you make them where they're kind of the same thickness all the way through, and you don't have that mass at the base, you may need to put some kind of sticky putty down to stick it to a table, because if it is bumped, especially if it's a vase, it could get knocked over quite easily. But if you've got some mass in the bottom of it, well, it's certainly a lot more stable, and that's the way that I just prefer to do my wood turnings, and that's pretty much the way that I've always done my wood turnings. Anyway, we're getting down to the final little few passes here. I know that this is a lot of repetitive stuff here, but I know that a lot of people like this content, so I'm going to continue to make my videos the way that I do. Yeah, nice flat bottom. There we go. These are the 3.5-inch double discs from sandpaper.ca. Right now, thickness is probably 5/8 to 1/2 inch, somewhere around there. That's typically where I like to have my wood turnings, especially when you're working with epoxy. When I'm working with straight normal woods, it's usually not that thick. Although I'm not against that because I do like a weighted piece. But we're going to sand this to 180, and then of course we're going to do an epoxy coat because this one needs it to fill in the wood area. I should also mention that when it comes to these sanding discs, the ones that I use the most are typically the 60 grit. That's where I start sanding. 60 and 320, I typically will use a lot more of those than any other discs. So we're going to do an epoxy coat on this. This burl will definitely benefit from it. There are a bunch of cracks in the burl. The epoxy is perfect. There's no issues there. But like most burls, when they dry, you're going to get some sort of cracking. So that's why we're going to use 3 ounces of the Pro Series. And of course, I'm using a silicone barbecue brush to apply this. It is important that you don't put on too much of this stuff. We're going to sand it off the next day, so it's not a huge deal if you do, but it will make your sanding experience the next day a lot easier if you try and limit how much you put on there. And I kind of use the brush more like a squeegee more than anything. And then of course rub it in with my hand to make sure we fill in all the grain. Check that out. How cool is that epoxy? Again, you're probably going to hear construction noises in the background. They're building a house right next door to us here. Going to be our home. So you're going to hear all kinds of machinery and stuff happening. Oh, that's so nice. No thermal cracks. This really deep pour. And the burl, well, it ain't bad either. Absolutely love this thing. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. Beautiful color separation. You just got to work with your wait times when you're working with deep cast. See you tomorrow for the first coat of original. Well, good morning. Here we are the next day. For the most part, the cracks in the wood have been filled up. We'll have to see. We might have to use a little bit of the flash bond when we get done here, but overall it looks pretty good. I am going to start sanding, I think, at 120 though, and we'll go all the way to 600, have a look at it. If I don't like the surface, then I'll sand to 800, buff it, clean it, and get a first coat of Waterlux on it. Still getting some questions about this method. You know, a lot of people, it doesn't make sense how I would apply this epoxy coat and then basically sand it all off to the raw wood. But you know, we're doing, you know, a few things here. If there's any chips in, say, the epoxy, it's going to fill those in. It's going to fill in those cracks. But the other big one is it's going to fill the grain in the wood. You don't have to worry about the epoxy. But of course, the graining, especially when stuff like this is kind of predominantly in grain, it will soak up a ton of finish, and by doing that epoxy coat, it will limit how much finish you're going to use. All right, so I'm sanding it to 320, and I'm going to fill these cracks now. I'm going to point them out because they're really hard to see, but of course, down inside of that burl, it's very, very hard to get to these, and then of course there's another one there. The epoxy has filled in the rest of them. Well, there's another one up here too. So anyway, we're going to use the Flash Bond Thin to fill these. You've heard me say it a number of times here on the channel. I don't know how you could be a wood turner and not have some sort of CA glue to use to fill in, you know, little areas like this. And so yeah, I mean, Design Epoxy does make the thin, medium, and thick. And if you use code InlayJimCA at checkout, you'll help out the channel. Thanks for that. There, that's it, just 3 spots. I'll let that sit for about 10 minutes, then I'll throw it back on the lathe, continue sanding, and we'll see you when we're doing the buffing. This is Triple E buffing compound from the Burl buffing system, and this should give us about a 1,000 to 1,200 surface, thereabouts. I did not need to sand to 800. It certainly wouldn't hurt to sand to 800, but I don't really see a noticeable difference after buffing, because I know there'll be some questions about that. And of course, if you haven't seen this method before, you've got to clean away that buffing compound with some denatured alcohol. All right, if you haven't seen this before, this is what we're going to be using, Waterlux Original Gloss. So when this finish is fully cured, it is non-toxic. And the one thing about this finish is that it really builds quickly. Waterlux makes fantastic products. They are not sponsored. I'm just a happy customer. Well, there it is in its first coat of original. Man, I love those pearl pigments. Nice purple area. Nice blue and green area. And a nice green and blue area. And the Burl, well, it ain't bad either, I must say. There we go. All right, we'll see you tomorrow for the second coat. Let me know what you think. Here we are the next day. Yeah, you should be able to see it in the Burl, the dryness there. So we are definitely going to need another coat, if I can get the light to kind of shine on it there. Yeah, there you can see it in the grain. So anyway, we're going to buff this with the Triple E, clean it with the denatured alcohol, and get our second coat on. I didn't use a universal tongue roller sealer this week. That's mostly just because I used the epoxy coat here, but you certainly could have used that first and then put the original over top of it. But it's the same process, buff back the finish, and then shouldn't be any lumps and bumps. Should be nice and flattened out, and then clean it with the denatured alcohol again before the next coat. Here is your second coat of Waterlux Gloss Original. Once again, I like to use cotton-free rags when I'm applying this stuff. Yeah, and if you put too much on it, it will run and sag just like putting it on with a brush. So watch out for that if you're going to use this method. There it is in its second coat. Those pearl pigments are just fantastic. Love them. Very green looking that way, and not so much this way. That dark purple area is kind of hard to show off. There it is. Anyway, let me know what you think. I don't think that there's going to be another coat required. We'll see you when we're doing the foot tomorrow. Let me know what you think. Awesome Burl too. See you tomorrow. All right, well, what do you think about this beauty? Man, oh man. That is some beautiful epoxy. And that is some beautiful Burl. But as you can see, I haven't got a finished bottom for you. I'm looking inside here. It's going to be a little hard to... I'll try and get the shine to hit it the right way, but there are parts of it in there that look kind of dull, and it's definitely going to need another coat of finish. Again, just the way this bowl is shaped, it's kind of hard to show. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, it looks really, really nice. And it's just all of that end grain just really soaking up that epoxy and the original as well. But anyway, it should still look nice when it's lit up at the end here. Size on this is 9 1/4 inches at its widest dimension. 4 3/4 tall, and it's anywhere from 1/2 inch to 5/8 in thickness, just like I said in the video. Anyway, let me know what you think about this beautiful bowl. I think it's awesome. Don't forget to put designer epoxy in the comments down below, and this will be the last video before the draw next week. We're going to do the draw next week. Designer epoxy wanted me to pass on some stuff. There is some concern that, you know, if you buy products here that you're going to be hit with tariffs. That is not the case right now. I get this written down here. So for deep cast, the 3 gallons, it is $197 US. So that's a fantastic deal still. And there's no surprise charges. That's what you're going to get. So on orders over $250 and above, there's free shipping. In orders under that amount, it is still $17.49. So, and that's a flat rate across the US, continental US. So that's still a great deal, even if you don't meet the 250. So anyway, I know that there's some concern that people are going to buy their epoxy and they're going to have to pay tariffs, and that is not the case. That is everything is taken care of on this end, and that is the price you're going to pay. DesignerEpoxy.com. Yeah. So next week, you know, I've got a little bit of unfinished business with that last hollow form with the globes. I want to do another successful globe project, and so that's what the giveaway is going to be next week. So please come on back for that. And yeah, this is your last video to comment on this batch of subscribers. So every 5,000 for the new people, every 5,000, Designer Epoxy has been giving away a 3-gallon kit. And of course, whatever I make that week, I give that away as well. So anyway, this is your last week to comment. I guess that's it. Oh, by the way, a couple of lifts of OSB have arrived, so you might even hear them in the background working on the roof as we speak. So that's awesome. We're not being held up at all. Well, all right, that's it. Have yourselves a fantastic weekend. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Special shout out to the members. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being members of my channel. And if you want to be a member of my channel, it is $2.99 a month to do so. All right? See you next week for the giveaway. Take care.